You just heard When You Sleep by My Bloody Valentine, which is an example of the subgenre they helped pioneer, shoegaze. Shoegaze is a musical genre defined by its repetitive, droning melodies and cryptic, emotional lyrics. Coming off the heels of British indie rock, new wave, and the psychedelic era, shoegaze cemented itself as the genre for the introverted rocker. On this week's episode, we will discuss early inspirations, staple bands of shoegaze like My Bloody Valentine and Slowdive, and where the genre stands today.
Yeah, so you recommended this as the topic for this week because you're really into shoegaze. What do you like about it?
Yeah, I'm definitely not one of the hardcore shoegaze fans, but it is one of the genres that's pretty heavily in my rotation of music genres. I just like how kind of emotional and raw the music ends up being.
Yeah.
And I feel like I listen to a lot of emo music, and it's kind of a off branch of that, or maybe a adjacent.
It's
branch.
a spiritual twin.
Yeah, spiritual twin is a good way of putting it.
But when did you get into it?
I think in college I was listening to a lot of just kind of 80s and 90s rock for Gen Xers, like the Violent Femmes and Sunny Day Real Estate. So I was kind of really engulfing myself in this era of music.
Mm-hmm.
And then I discovered this band Gleemer from their Audio Tree Live set. They're kind of a newish shoegaze adjacent band from Colorado. And from there, I kind of met in the middle and realized a lot of songs that I knew were shoegaze. And I just wasn't able to put a pin on what that was called.
Yeah, I realized doing research for this week's episode that a lot of songs I'd listened to were shoegaze too. We put together a playlist.
Yeah.
I included some songs that I've been listening to for years. I never even thought what genre is this I was listening to.
Yeah, I think it's niche on the surface, but there were a couple songs that poked through that are leagues ahead in terms of popularity from the rest of their genre. But they were all influencing each other kind of at the same time.
Yeah. It sounds like, with Gleemer, you started there and then you worked your way backwards, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
I think a lot of people start with the OG or first wave of shoegaze. That's, it's still very popular with bands we'll get to like My Bloody Valentine and things like that.
Yeah. I think it is rare for me to do that. I feel like I usually get stuck in one band in one era of a genre and then kind of just stick with that. But with the connections of that early emo, it did drift me back into
it piqued your interest.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what exactly is the etymology of shoegaze?
Yeah, shoegaze, it was originally shoegazing as a verb. It was coined by Andy Ross, who is a British music executive. So
yeah. He jokingly coined the term while attending a 1991 concert in which the bands Lush, Blur, and Moose performed. And he referred to the guitarist of the band Moose as a shoegazer. And that term, it then just took off. There's a misconception that he published that term in print because at the time he was also working as a contributor for the British newspaper Sounds. But that's not how it happened. It really spread by word of mouth. And it mutated from shoegazer into shoegaze.
Yeah, but he was a shoegazer because he was just standing on the stage staring at the pedals the whole time. Mm-hmm. So he meant it kind of disparagingly, and it gained a lot of criticism, the term did, just through
its negative association.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very common, though. There are other musical genres where the first term that got slapped onto it was originally a pejorative term, and then it lost its negative connotation, similar to rockabilly or scene. It's the exact same.
Yeah, Mark Gardner, who's in the shoegaze band Ride, he states in an interview, "I didn't like that applied degree of apathy. It reminded me perhaps romantically of the Velvet Underground, the idea that you could stand still and make a lot of noise." Mm-hmm. So, not all rock artists want to be Bono and be like showmen. He was saying all these bands that we're getting inspiration from, they weren't moving around a lot. Why should we have to move around a lot? We're making really loud, awesome music.
Yeah, this is something that's actually harder for people to research or even know about, but as music scenes emerge, they often differentiate themselves in terms of performance style. But unless you were there, it's really hard to know that unless you're reading really into the history. Say what I did with research for the Lecture Clash episode or for this week's episode. You often don't get that. People know about it with shoegaze because it's literally in the name. But yeah, that often is something that people look over.
Yeah, I like when, musicians don't want to be a part of the genre that they're a part of.
It's a good instinct to have, because that means they're trying to be part of the avant-garde. They're not just trying to, work within the confines of a genre that's already been defined. Absolutely. And that's generally less experimental. It's better for artists to try to be part of an avant-garde.
Yeah. Well, especially when they are the ones that are like actively inventing that genre.
Yeah.
They probably don't want to be like the people that are maybe trying to mirror what they're doing also.
Yeah. But yeah, the etymology of the term's interesting. Before this week, I had this big misconception that actually the term shoegaze referred to some sort of dance style where you look at your shoes while you dance. That's not it.
No, just picture just some emo kids standing on a stage, just looking at their feet, playing really loud music, pressing a lot of pedals with their feet. That's why they're looking down.
Yeah. It's part of that too. They're often shrouded in darkness a bit on the stage. It's very dimly lit.
Yeah.
And then they don't have a lot of interaction with the audience. They're not like, oh, hey, Chicago, how are you? They don't do that.
Yeah. Well, they're also not playing at, huge venues. When I picture a shoegaze show, I'm picturing, a stage in the back of a dive bar or something along those lines.
Yeah. It's a small, intimate audience usually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With people that really usually like the band that they're seeing.
Yeah. So now we can get into the history of shoegaze a little bit.
Yeah. So it started out in the late 1980s, mostly in the UK. I think a lot of the bands that we'll talk about are British bands or of the British Isles. Yeah.
No, it's definitely endemic to the British Isles. We'll talk about bands from England, Scotland, and Ireland. Mm-hmm. It only started to be to exist in the United States in the early 90s with bands like the Drop 19s. Early American shoegaze, it was centered in Boston. But originally it was strictly, largely British and in the UK.
Yeah. And I think there's three big distinct points that shoegaze kind of was formed out of. And the first is Phil Spector's wall of sound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is quite technical. Hopefully I land this, but Phil Spector, he was an American record producer and songwriter who is considered one of the most influential figures in pop music history. He developed what is now known as the wall of sound production technique in the early 1960s. For that, he would have a rotating cast of around 20 to 30 musicians known as the Wrecking Crew. They'd come into the studio, and then he would have multiple musicians play the same notes at once while recording. So say there was a song with a bassist, there would be 2 or 3 people playing the bass all at the same time instead of just one person, and that amplified the amount of sound. And then he took it a few steps further where the song was then piped down into an echo chamber where the song would then reverberate, and a single microphone, it would record that reverberated sound. And that resulted in the songs produced using the wall of sound technique to sound very full.
Yeah.
And it proved very successful. Phil Spector, he produced over a dozen top 40 hits from 1962 to 1966. And it's not really that people today are recording with the wall of sound technique, literally where there are 30 musicians in a studio and the sound's being piped down to an echo chamber. That would be crazy. But people still kind of replicate the technique using DAWs. It's still relevant today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things that once you hear it, you can't unhear it in so many different songs.
Yeah. We should play a song to demonstrate it.
The most popular and kind of the pioneering track of the wall of sound is Be My Baby by the Ronettes. And we'll play that right now.
Yeah, so I feel like the fullness of the sound, you can hear it a lot in the drum beat, but basically the way that you're able to hear all of the individual instruments and nothing's really in the background, that's what wall of sound kind of refers to.
Yeah, and you'll hear this in other songs too. Don't Worry Baby, it was initially intended for the Ronettes, but Phil Spector rejected it because he doesn't like songs that he didn't write himself. Mm-hmm. And so Brian Wilson took this song that he wrote and just produced it with his band, the Beach Boys. And the song is incredibly similar. You can kind of tell that Wilson was really obsessed with this song.
It's a derivative song in some ways.
It's extremely derivative.
Yeah.
And yeah, it has that same like low fidelity recording. I'm really kind of obsessed with that sound, and I don't think that they were going for that. It's just a product of the time that they were made. But it really does feel like you're kind of just in this room with some microphones with these people.
Yeah. No, it feels like you're there in this way that's kind of indescribable.
Yeah.
But what's interesting to note